I am very worried about security measures and security protocols. We've gone through this before. I am more concerned about it now than I've ever been. We've decided that we will not be doing any outdoor events for the foreseeable future.
He was a great man. I mean, a man of faith, a true patriot that really was taking message to colleges where nobody wanted to have civil conversations.
We start in a very somber place this week on this Sunday in South Carolina as we get you connected to the Capitol. South Carolina leaders weighing in on the tragic shooting death of political commentator Charlie Kirk out in Utah during a campus speaking event on Wednesday. This is a great American tragedy, to say the very least. Politically motivated violence. The accused shooter has since been arrested. But the message that was sent this week is troubling around this country. Catherine Glenn Foster and Dave Wilson, we bring you in on this. We heard from Nancy Mace. We heard from Pamela Evett. Leaders from all corners talking about what we saw play out in broad daylight in this country this week, and it is beyond troubling.
It really was. The violence that played out before us, that was this video that went viral right before our eyes.
Yeah.
Now, Charlie was someone that I knew personally, personal friend, and the words that his widow shared were powerful. This was. It was a cultural moment. It was a touchstone, a turning point, actually, if you will, for America, because there are so many shootings, so many deaths that don't get this level of attention.
No.
For a lot of different reasons. He was a public figure. He spoke out and for what he believed in, and then this public shooting in front of hundreds, the viral video that came from it. We as a nation have to take this moment and use his tragic death to inspire us to something better. People talk about politicizing death, and that's tough, because on both sides, you want to be careful about that. But mourning is, and it really should be public at times, and we have our political system to respond to the truth, to respond to the facts before us. And when the facts before us are so horrifying, when they're so clear, we have no option but to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Dave.
For some people, though, taking action
is not what we think it is.
Anything but civil. The public discourse that is supposed to be taking place in the world of our political system is a dialogue that goes back and forth, a dialogue of words, not a dialogue of violence. I don't think there's anything I saw that was more disgusting than the celebration of someone's death spewed out across social media. It not only happened in the vast world of social media. You had a teacher in Greenville County who lost his job because of comments that he made celebrating the death. You have Clemson has come out with a statement
on Friday, yes.
On Friday, in regards to a statement that came from a professor. You have the freedom of speech in America. It's your First Amendment right. With First Amendment rights come First Amendment responsibilities as well. And I think, guys, this is the place that, if you're going to get fired up about something, at least respect the man's death long enough before you decide that you're going to go dancing on his grave.
Yeah.
That imagery of his widow, Erica, holding her rosary up and out of the window, just asking for prayers, that was so powerful, because no matter what the situation is, agree with him, disagree with him, there were plenty on both sides, but you have to look at the humanity of the person and the humanity of the people who loved them and who they loved. Mm-hmm. And this is a young man with a young widow, with young children. And some of those comments that we are seeing out there are they're reprehensible. And that brings me back to what I would just call a culture of numbness, of desensitization. We're living in a country where there's too much before our eyes. There's too much violence, whether in the way of videos that we see online, video games, all the different ways that we see violence infect our lives. And so as we doom scroll and we get exposed to these things, we end up all too often desensitizing ourselves and thinking, well, that's just a person. It's we have the violence in movies and everything, but this is a man.
This is real.
And so for hundreds of students who saw him there that day, their lives will never be the same. It's not like seeing a fake death in a movie. This is a real life that was snuffed out in front of them. And so years, decades from now, they may still be needing trauma therapy. His family, just unimaginable horror. And you just want to shield them and protect them, just like we would want to do for anyone who's been subject to this violence. But again, now must be the moment when we call to our better natures, when we use the awareness that's been brought about by this senseless, tragic death, and say, no more, we have to turn the tide here.
Yeah, he was here, Charlie Kirk was, at the University of South Carolina. We do have some video of his visit. This was back in April. You had students, you had faculty, you had community members going to have political discourse. Not everyone agreed with the messaging, but it was nothing like what we saw this week.
I think you can have a disagreement on viewpoints. There's nothing wrong with having two different viewpoints. We were in a meeting just this past week with community members from both sides of the aisle, from multiple races, who were coming together to talk about how do we start figuring out our commonalities and the things that we need to be working on. We spend so much time talking about the fringes instead of talking about what are the core things that we all agree with. And don't get me wrong, this is part of building a movement. I mean, you have the conservatives that will do it, you have the progressives that will do it, you have liberals that will do it, you have radicals that will do it. That's part of building coalitions. And it goes back to the founding of our country. If you're familiar at all with the way that our government is set up, it is set up in a two-party system. And that two-party system has different factions that are within it. We talk about this every single week. There's nothing wrong with having different viewpoints. The wrongness, though, comes when we decide that our viewpoints, as different as they are, deserve violence instead of discourse.
Or even that some viewpoints must be silenced. This is a long-standing principle in our U.S. Constitution, that no matter how much you disagree with someone, they have the right to say it, even if it's reprehensible, even if it seems evil, unless it's directly causing harm, like shouting fire in a crowded movie theater. You have the right to say that. And so it goes back to what Charlie was doing at the moment of his death. He was sitting under his tent, and it said, "Prove me wrong." Part of his campus tour, first stop he was making, "Prove me wrong." And even when that was done imperfectly, he was known for inviting people in. And in fact, when there would be a differing viewpoint coming to that microphone, asking questions or even arguing with them, he would say, no, don't shout them down, let them speak, let's have a dialogue. Because it was always about connection, about building that relationship, which to me also goes back to that ad that you showed me, that Coke ad.
Yeah. There's a video on Instagram where Coca-Cola put vending machines on college campuses to get students to connect with each other. The only way that the bottles could open would be two people working together to actually open the lids. That's what Charlie Kirk was trying to do, was to say we need to bring ourselves together, and that's how you find solutions.
Yeah. We'll be discussing this topic in the weeks to come for sure as the fallout just continues, and we hope the violence stops here for certain. When we come back, we're going to be talking some economic issues, the tariffs, the Trump tariffs, and the possible impact on the South Carolina economy. That's when we come back here on Connect to the Capitol. All right, time to talk tariffs. The Trump tariffs. The Supreme Court's going to decide whether the global tariffs are legal. The High Court's going to hear that case in November. Now, the administration says tariffs, of course, put economic pressure on countries like Canada, Mexico, China. And it's aimed at, he says, ending the trafficking of fentanyl and other illegal drugs in this country. Of course, tariffs remain in place. And on this Sunday, we want to look at what the impact would be here in South Carolina. We have a major port in this state, and we talked about that last week too, and how we worry about how major it really is anymore. But let's talk money and the reciprocal tariffs that we see there.
Absolutely. So as you said, the Supreme Court has already agreed to hear two consolidated, merged together cases on these tariffs. So this discussion may go away in just a few weeks, or at least morph into something else. But these tariffs, they came about because the president used his emergency power instead of going the more traditional congressional route to enact broad tariffs, addressing a number of problems that we can debate separately. That's a whole different matter. But the question for the Supreme Court is, was this a legitimate use of this power? And so far, the courts have been inclined to say no. The court is hearing this on an expedited, fast-tracked schedule. So we're going to have oral arguments coming up in just a few weeks, first week of November. In the meantime, a lot of briefing. But really, the question for us is, how is this going to impact South Carolina? We have a lot of big companies here, some of them coming in from overseas, a lot of them importing parts from overseas and then shipping out, and the impact could be dramatic.
This is a time and a place where we begin to recognize that our state is a manufacturing state. We used to be a textile state. Textiles moved to Mexico and they moved to the Pacific Rim. But if you think about what's produced in South Carolina, if it drives, if it rolls, if it flies, if it floats, we make it in South Carolina. We have one of the largest tire industries in America. We are making foreign-made cars, so you've got parts that are coming in for BMW and Volvo that are being ported in through the Port of Charleston, and those materials are being taxed with a new tariff on the way in. I spoke with the CEO of the South Carolina Manufacturing Alliance about this the other day, Sarah Hazard, and I asked her, I said, where are manufacturers right now with the tariff? And she said, the companies in South Carolina are feeling it. This is an impactful way that while, yes, the tariffs are being used by the Trump administration to turn around and maneuver foreign policy and try to get better trade going on, it's also affecting the bottom line of South Carolina companies. And where you're feeling it is when that product that you buy that comes from another country ends up arriving in a package that you got from online, or you go to the store and you buy something, or in your business, you're beginning to see that the cost of goods is going up. That is the place where you're recognizing that the tariff is impacting your bottom line in South Carolina. And a statistic that came out just last week said it's $2,400 per family in America that is being impacted by the tariffs that are going on right now.
That's exactly right. And so this is impacting not only our ports, our businesses, but also our kitchen tables. So we talk about kitchen table politics and the price of eggs, but everything is subject to higher prices, is subject to delays. And in fact, we're seeing the impact of this nationwide. So the companies that have sued, we have a number of states, 11 states that have brought a lawsuit, but also several companies already came out in front, including a couple of educational toy companies, actually. So just trying to make the kinds of toys that educate our children have been dramatically impacted, are seeing exponential rises in their fees, their tariffs. And so it's having a significant impact. And we're also seeing a friend of the court amicus briefing from across the political spectrum, actually. People on the left, people on the right, people in the middle, libertarians, you name it. All these different groups joining together to talk about the impact of these tariffs and also their legality.
1 minute left in this segment. We want to do one quick comment on, we talked about last week, voter data in South Carolina. The DOJ wants to have access to it. Right now, the State Election Commission says they're going to work with the DOJ on this to at least to protect the integrity of South Carolina's voting data.
Right. South Carolina Supreme Court has now come out and given a green light on that. Does this affect what information the federal government has about you? That's the place that really boils down to two key pieces of information that are included in your voter data file. That includes your driver's license number and the last four of your social security number. So the Election Commission is going to try to make it as much as they can what the DOJ is wanting, but at the same time protect your data. And that's a big question that the Supreme Court in South Carolina at least said, thumbs up, we're going to allow you to move it forward. Yeah.
They answered. All right, that's it for this segment. But coming up, we're talking about the roads that all of us drive. They're so wonderful. They're so wonderful. But we're going to talk about how they're handled and who's going to do the handling. That's when we come back. Welcome back to the Connect to the Capitol. We're talking roads. We all need them every single day, and they could be better. And some in this state say the people in charge of those roads could be better as well. How about overhauling the DOT and a potential of giving control of roads back to local government, at least the ones that are in their bandwidth, so to speak? Because we know it's really kind of a puzzle of who controls what.
Right.
On any given road. So let's talk about this. The people pushing this say it could save a lot of money, or at least use it more wisely.
Well, what we have right now is a 25-year plan to do a lot of work that needs to be done because South Carolina's roads and bridges had a lot of delay in the way that they were being taken care of. And in this particular matter, you've got legislators who are saying, instead of leaving it in centralized control in Columbia, let's give it back to the 46 counties to use the money as they see fit for what they know to be happening on their roads. There's already dollars that flow from the state to your local governments, your county governments, to handle road patches, road work that needs to be done. But the other side of this is counties also don't have all the funds that they need for this. So we're not going to see an increase in the gas tax. That debate took place at the state level, and that is not something that I could even project could even be discussed for the next 5 to 10 years, because there's just not going to be appetite for that. So it leaves it now to the counties to decide how they're going to be doing this. So you have some that are increasing the fees that are being done. You have other registration fees that go into this. So every county is a little bit different in the way that they manage that. And you're seeing a difference between Richland County and other counties in the Midlands of South Carolina in the fees that they're collecting. And that's where road construction issues come up. And the question is now, who is going to be in charge of managing the Department of Transportation, especially when we have so many massive projects to take care of and an infrastructure, a transportation infrastructure system that really has to have a real sense of attention and focus and management.
And we have a proposal from SC Doge about who would take control of that. We have that graphic, just a couple points that were made about overhauling the DOT. The only 2 items apparently would overhaul it, according to to Representative Jay Kilmartin, who put this out. They want to put an elected official in charge, and we've already talked about that, return road dollars back to counties. It seems simple, but this is a major agency.
It really is.
It is huge.
Yeah, the infrastructure needs are real. And when you look at the data, it becomes evident just how extreme the need is. Because when you look at our land mass here in South Carolina, we rank 40th. By population, we're 23rd. But in terms of linear mileage of roads, we rank number 4. We got a lot of roads, right? And we have this growth that we're seeing, which is great. A lot of hope comes along with that growth, but also a lot of need to reinvest in the infrastructure. And so that's exactly what we're talking about here. The real question is, how is that best handled? Is that something that would be most efficient, most cost effective at the local level, or remaining somehow with SCDOT when we're looking at spending somewhere between $2 and $3 billion this year alone just to maintain our roads?
Yeah.
And we have to also recognize, and the DOT has come out and said this, there's not enough people in the road construction workforce to meet the demands that we have for construction. If you're in road construction, you are set in South Carolina for probably the next decade, if not more, with the 25-year plan.
2 decades.
Yeah, with the 25-year plan that South Carolina is on right now, and we're at the better part, maybe 6-7 years into that plan right now. That's 2 decades of road construction that needs to be done in this state, and that's going to be an ongoing process. But we don't have enough of that going on at the moment.
Well, remains to be seen. Or a road to nowhere, if you will, with the pun on this Sunday. When we come back, we're talking endorsements, the holy grail of endorsements, President Donald Trump, and how he's nowhere near making one here in South Carolina just yet, but he has made some so far as we look ahead to the midterm elections. We're going to look at just the overall number and, of course, you know, who's jockeying for it here in South Carolina. There are 5 people, but only a couple of them probably have a real shot at it.
Yeah.
Probably
That's
so.
when we come back. Final segment here on Connect to the Capitol. We are talking about the immense power of the President Trump endorsement as we head into the midterm elections. We've got a lot of congressional seats up for grabs, Senate seats up for grabs, state house seats that'll be in play in some areas. And of course, we have our governor's race here in South Carolina and all the jockeying for position from the 5 GOP hopefuls in our governor's race so far. You would think Donald Trump's running for governor in South Carolina because you see him in all the campaign ads more than you see the actual candidates.
And he does more of the talking.
He does most of the talking.
Than the candidates themselves do. And this is every candidate that wants to get that endorsement is already trying to infer that endorsement in the ads that they're running right now, because they're trying to say, look, I'm more and more like Trump. I'm more and more like Trump.
Except for that man, Congressman Ralph Norman.
Except for Ralph Norman, who really could care less because he's already decided that he's going to be in the same camp as Nikki Haley, Jim DeMint, and some core old guard conservatives in South Carolina. But Donald Trump's success ratio is through the roof when it comes to endorsements. When you look at it in South Carolina, you've got the governor's race, you've got certain races, everything all the way down to, and we saw this in state level politics, the Republican Party. Yeah. The endorsement of Donald Trump is what put Drew McKissick into the position as the chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party when there was a very contested race that could be on the edge, and Donald Trump threw that hat into the ring and Drew McKissick won. We see it in other spots as well. As a matter of fact, in the 2026 elections thus far, Marcus, if you could throw that graphic up for us real quick, we're looking at 71 different endorsements that he has made thus far. 71 in primaries, everything from U.S. Senate to U.S. House to state races. And that prize has typically meant a win ratio. In the last election, a win ratio somewhere between 75 and 80%. Yeah. That's not a bad thing if you are seeking that endorsement, because that raises your batting average. It raises your win ratio through the roof.
That's exactly right. You know, a Trump endorsement, it signals loyalty, ideology, alignment with his America First platform. It can do a lot for a candidate. On the other hand, it can also be alienating to a moderate, anyone liberal who's considering voting for President Trump, or for anyone who he's endorsed, as well as for more establishment conservatives. It can create a little bit of tension between them and the more populist wing of the party. So you know, there's a lot of questions that remain to be answered, especially as we move forward.
As we move forward, and as we begin to take a look at the race that's going on right now, you've got the 5 Republicans that are there on the screen. We know that at least 3 or 4 of those are going to be looking for some level of a Trump endorsement, should that come through. The other side of the coin, though, real quick, we are South Carolina. This is South Carolina politics. We are first in the South. Sometimes we've been first in the nation, depending upon the party. And just this past week, we saw yet another Democrat coming into South Carolina, Senator Mark Kelly, out of Arizona, the husband of Gabby Gifford. Was here in the state this past week, and the Democrats are starting to make their play right now. Again, for 2028.
2028. We're going to skip right past 2026.
Why?
We can't. Well, we can't do that. But we do have to skip out of here.
We do.
We packed a lot in again on this Sunday here in South Carolina. We got you connected to the Capitol. Dave, Catherine, thank you as always. Hope everyone has a good week.
Happy Sunday.
Take care.